Well, Patti, let's say right off the bat, this podcast episode is brought to you by NMI.com, our sponsor. What a fantastic technology company built for ISOs specifically. Just a great sponsor. We've already really enjoyed having them on the podcast.
Yeah, a lot. And I've really enjoyed this podcast today. I found it so enlightening, James. Text to pay is something that always seems sort of futuristic to me.
Right.
And, I think that our interview with Larry I think people are going to come away with some really important insights on that.
Yeah, they're going to come away with a lot of practical insights. And then also just the fact that Visa, he mentioned that Visa's in contact with him every week and, investing in all these things. I mean, it's really quite amazing the impact that he's having. This is really, Everyware has become kind of the standard pay by text solution out in the industry. So really important interview today. And then tell us about tell us about the Insiders Report.
The Insiders Report, we're talking about, I'm throwing out a lot of data points that I think are really interesting that could help you in talking with merchants in terms of, what's prevalent, what are some consumer perceptions and attitudes and usage, as well as what some of the networks are seeing.
Yeah, and then questions from the field, I do something I try not to do too often, which is admit that I'm wrong. So talk about Apple Pay. And, I was wrong about Apple Pay early on. I finally had the experience of card not present with Apple Pay, and it was fantastic. And I'm seeing a lot of growth there. So I talk about my thoughts on that. So all in all, I think it's a good episode because it really all goes together pretty well. We didn't plan it exactly that way, but it all goes together really well.
No, but it sure did. And just to defend you on your previous position, James, remember that was a couple of years ago when you told everybody that Apple Pay
That's true. Thank you for getting me off the hook there, Patti. So, but
they've improved what they offer now.
Yes,
particularly in card not present.
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go.
Welcome to the Merchant Sales Podcast.
All right. So Patti and I are joined today by Larry Talley. Larry is the CEO and founder of Everyware. How are you doing today, Larry?
Excellent, James. Great to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
It's great to have you.
Yeah, well, we're really excited about the conversation today. Patti and I were talking about, topics we've not covered. One of them is text to pay. Which really is kind of shocking because it's such a big topic. And I think it's one that a lot in our audience have maybe ignored or haven't paid attention to as much as they should. So we're going to dive into that. Before we do though, Larry, I'd love to get your story. Tell us how you got into this crazy industry, how you ended up founding Everyware.
Yeah, no, great question. Because I really wasn't, really involved too much in payments most of my, career. I actually got in the payment industry only about 4 years ago. And prior to that, I spent about almost 20 years in the resort and hospitality space where I learned, which was high risk. And being in that space, not knowing too much about the payment side of the world and that spectrum, I realized that, wow, if this is a high risk industry, what makes it so high risk? And really it was the lack of communication or the fact that, you just can't call or get a hold of someone like you used to. And it obviously converts a lot of chargeback refunds, online bad reviews, and all the issues that go along with the lack of communication. And man, if you can just send somebody a text message in 140 characters or less, pretty much solve the world's problems.
Yeah. Well, so let's do this, Larry. I would love to kind of zoom out for a minute because again, this is a topic that I think our audience has not paid as much attention to as they should. So can you talk to our audience of, independent salespeople that are out there selling merchants on payment processing or ISOs that are selling point of sale systems, et cetera? Why should they care about text to pay? And maybe give us a little bit of an overview of what that even means and why they should care about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For a number of different reasons. For one, it's a great leave behind. In other words, even if you swipe a credit card transaction and you send out a thank you receipt that allows them to text back, that gives you the ability to constantly have a communication touch point with your customer. Think of it like a tether, right? You always have that tether with the consumer where you can text them and they can text you. So the best thing about it is once you establish that tether, right, that connection, with your customer, when they owe you money, you can just reach out to them, send them a text message, and it's not going to be weird, right? It's not going to be something that's unexpected. You'll find it's actually natural. And what's great for ISOs, it creates added value by having another payment method. A lot of times as an ISO, you're always focusing on net new, right? Going out there, getting new business. But what does it look like to go out to your back book, right? With something cool that they don't have already, right? And being able to offer your back book the ability now to offer text to pay, right? So it's another payment method that's really taken off. It's contactless, but better yet, I like to think of it as just being a convenient way to transact, with your customers. So it's really great for ISOs. And then for the businesses, no different than I got my hair cut this morning. I had to look good for your show, by the way, right? Maybe you don't see my video. But just in case, their terminal went down, right? And they had to literally write down my credit card number on a piece of paper, and I'll charge it when it comes back up. Well, man, you know what? This is just a great, scenario of being a backup payment method, right? Being a backup to a piece of hardware that continuously fails, right? And so by having the ability, everyone walks around with a terminal in their pocket. So if they would have had, text to pay, they would have just sent me a text link and it would have been done.
Yep.
Well, if you wouldn't mind, Larry, explain exactly what you mean by text to pay. Are we sending people to a mobile or hosted payments page? I'm assuming you're not collecting payment data via text message, right? So can you give us a little sense for how exactly it works?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Patti. Great question. So the way it initially works, or the way that you get provision, in the network, is basically you'll receive a text message with a secure payment link. Think of it as a direct tokenized link that gets you right to the checkout page, right? So it skips all the logins, all the clutter. It gets you right to the checkout page, which simply asks you for your credit card. But when it asks you for your credit card, what's unique about it, it gives you the ability to save it on, save your profile. And by saving it means that the next time you don't have to click on the link. You can literally reply the words yes, and it'll charge the credit card on file, really making it that much more easier for you to actually pay.
Now that's actually really interesting. I hadn't thought about that angle. So what you're saying is, just to kind of clarify, you're saying that, I go to the same place to get my hair cut like you do. And so I go to this place every few weeks, and I could potentially save my card on file there. And then I could get a text that says, hey, you're coming in today. Do you want to go prepay or whatever? And I could just reply back, yes. It says, do you want to prepay? I'm assuming it would say like using card ending in 2360 or something. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly, right? It says, would you like to prepay, James? So think of it also like in copays, right? A lot of times you get reminded to show up for your appointment, no different than, like you said, for the hair example. But now you can actually pay for your copay in advance. And what's really great about paying for your copay in advance and saving your card on file before you even get to the doctor's office is that 30 or 45 days later, when they go after you to try to collect what insurance didn't cover, they see you a text message, right? And can you reply, please, reply yes using the card ending in 7212. You say yes, and your doctor gets paid. So it's a very easy, convenient way now to transact.
I love it. Okay. So let's talk about kind of different methods of payment here. I've been actually really impressed with kind of the experience of paying on my phone. It's one of the reasons I was excited about this conversation. Lately I've been ordering things from my phone that I would used to go on my laptop, but with like Apple Pay and, scanning to take the picture of the card. And, there's a lot of more convenient ways to get this data. It used to be like, I got to type out everything. So talk about kind of what that consumer experience is like. You touched on it a second ago, but are there other payment options? Can they use Apple Pay, Google Wallet? Do they have like to scan the card? Talk to us a little bit about that technology and how that plays into what you're doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it comes down to this, if you have a preferred payment method like Apple Pay or PayPal even, that you like to transact with that secure payment link, it's taking you to a virtual checkout page, right? Or that virtual terminal page where you can really use the payment method of your choice. And that might even be ACH, right? You might even go collect bank information this way. But really it's just giving that user or that customer the ability to pay what they're accustomed to, right? So Apple Pay, Google Pay, it really doesn't matter. We provide all those different payment methods as part of our pay by text solution. And I call it pay by text versus text to pay, because text to pay to me is when you actually have to think about texting in a keyword, right, to transact or to start the process, where pay by text is just really giving you the ability to just really pay by text. So I like to kind of reverse it and think of it more as a pay by text solution.
Yeah.
Cool. So what about in terms of software companies and even gateways, Larry? What's their take on this? Are they using text to pay, and or are you seeing more awareness of this, particularly over we've all seen over the past year how people want to pay in a touchless manner, right? I mean, and so I know there's been a lot of interest in contactless, traditional contactless. What are you seeing in terms of awareness of this text to pay type, these types of options?
Yeah, so I will throw one card brand out there that we got really excited, so much excited that, this card brand meets with us once a week. And they really meet with us every Monday morning. It's one of their first calls every Monday, and that's with Visa. Visa basically is adopted, and they understand that there's a lot of new payment methods that are coming onto the market right now. And then just like cash went away, plastic is going to go away as well. So they know that they got to be cardless and frictionless into the future. So they're looking at alternative payment methods like Everywhere that offer a solution like we offer. And what's unique about our solution is that in our partnership with Visa, who recommends a number of their clients to us, is that the ability to store that device information, right, that cell phone, your profile, that card in a network vault. And that once you're in the network vault, you can actually use it across merchants and across acquirers. And it's pretty powerful if you think about it, because today I could give my wife my credit card and she can go use it. There's really nothing to stop her. Back in the day, they would ask you for a driver's license, but since the chip came out, companies feel like they don't have to ask for a license anymore. So by having that cell phone creates two-factor authentication, right? It's that second ability to help reduce fraud, help reduce risk associated with e-commerce transactions, card not present transactions, right? And that's what Everywhere does. We offer a very convenient way, but also a very secure way that utilizes your device information and your card information and ultimately replaces that plastic option, right? That swipe option. So the card brands have really adopted it. They really see this being something that's going to be highly used into the future. And that's why they're making the investments in companies like Everywhere to help bring that to market.
Let's dig in a bit more on the technology integration side. Larry, I'm really interested in maybe some specific examples or use cases when we're talking about software. We touched on the idea of the hair salon or whatever, but I would imagine that usually that's taking place through like a point of sale integration or ISV integration. Can you give us some examples or some use cases of maybe how some technology companies, are leveraging what you're doing?
Yeah, so a good use case would be like Clover, for instance. We actually added a new button on Clover. It's a new key. It's a payment key right next to credit card that says pay by text, right? And you basically push that button, and now it basically asks you for a phone number versus a credit card. Basically enter the phone number, and it triggers that secure payment link, right, to go out to that user. And for the first time, if they're not in the network, it'll ask them for their credit card information. And what's great about this, it gives that POS, that point of sale system, now the ability to accept a remote payment, right? They don't have to ask for credit cards over the phone anymore. And you think about it, I mean, we're in 2021 and we're still giving out credit card phone numbers over the phone just for somebody to be writing it down on the back of a napkin, right? And now you don't have to do that. You don't have to ask somebody for their credit card. You ask for your phone number.
Right.
You send that, right? And you allow that user to complete the transaction on their own device with their own information, including signing it, right? They can sign their own device.
Right.
Right. So it's great to see this payment method really starting to take form.
So what about on the other side of this? Like, I'm curious, as somebody that would sell merchants, are there a lot of merchants that use this as kind of a standalone or a separate thing where it's not integrated with a point of sale or something along those lines? Maybe smaller merchants. I'm thinking of like a auto repair shop, that is frustrated with trying to collect the second half of the deposit or whatever on their transmission job or something. How does that work? Is there like a gateway or a dashboard or something, or how would that work as a standalone?
Yeah, the very first thing you do is go to everywhere.com. That's spelled like software, and you sign up, right? You claim your business, like that auto body example that you just mentioned. Right. And really within minutes, you get a merchant account that you can begin to set transactions on. So really out of the box within minutes, you can have your own dedicated platform, like you said, with a dashboard. I like to think of it as like if Stripe and Twilio had a baby, right? You combine those combination of communication and payments. You give you your own custom dashboard to manage your conversations like you would on Twilio. And better yet, now you can also manage your payment transactions like you would if you were using Stripe. It's that type of convenience and platform that we offer right out of the box. And it really just takes minutes to get set up.
So I think at this point, I generally have a pretty good feel of like what our audience is thinking as they're listening to an episode. I know what all of them are thinking right now, and that is, are you processor agnostic, or at least to the point of, you mentioned going back to your back book. Well, obviously I don't want to switch my merchants from TSYS or Elevon or First Data or, whatever. Can you talk a little about that? If I've already, I'm trying to board as much business as I can with this processor, how does that work? Is it a separate processing kind of mid with what you're doing, or is it integrated, or talk to us about that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So we make it really easy. I like to say, again, use the word frictionless, because it really is frictionless to get going. In other words, if you're already happy, like you said, with Card Connect or on Fiserv, then all we need is simply your API key, and you plug it in our platform, and now those two systems are connected, right? They actually can communicate to one another, and you can process transactions, and they're going to show up on the same statement that you get already. And we really have made it that easy. And so for ISOs out there, this is 100% new margin to their bottom line, right? This is added value. They can now charge, whether it's an extra $25 or $50 a month, to get access to this payment method and this platform, and keep their existing mid, right? Because it's always, like you said, a pain in the butt if you have to set up a new one. This really makes it easy, a little bit maybe even too easy, to literally just plug in an API key, from your acquirer, and those two systems are now communicating. And we've integrated to really all the major ones that are out there today. And always happy to do another one if a new one comes our way.
Yeah, sure. That's cool. So now you mentioned, so they would give the API key, but then I'm assuming there would be some additional step to set up that particular merchant. Like are they actually keeping the same mid in that case for that merchant, or are they setting up a new mid? Like, how does that, just out of curiosity, I'm getting a little technical, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, no problem. I would say that more than 75% can keep their own mid that accept card not present transactions today. Okay. Now, if this is strictly a mid that's used to getting, terminal face-to-face transactions, then yes, they'll have to, in cases, set up a new one. Again, add in a new one versus basically, replacing one, so.
Right.
And
so they're not losing a mid, of course. They're adding another mid.
They're adding another mid. In this case, to support a card not present transaction. Now, what's great about some of the changes that we're seeing that are going to happen in early 2022 is, and it's again, platforms like Everywhere that's leading the charge, is this being treated like a card present transaction. So actually a reduction in interchange.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's more secure, like you mentioned earlier, than even a normal card present transaction. So why wouldn't you get the lower rate? So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so last question I have is, let's talk about the economic model a little bit. Clearly, I think the ISOs and agents will understand the benefits that are kind of more intangible of, they're increasing volume, payment processing volume, they're increasing retention, they're going to get residuals on the payments that are processed because it's going through their platform. So I get all that. Are there additional economic incentives of offering Everywhere as a reseller, or is it really more about that kind of, the fact that they're just adding more volume to their existing mids?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's always great when you're able to add more volume to your existing mids, but being able to basically charge an extra $25 or $50 a month for our platform, that might have cost you only $15 as part of our, licensing agreement for our system, is huge. Sure. Right? It's huge for these ISOs to continuously get this reoccurring check each month, for transactional revenue that they're already getting on the processing volume, but for software as a service. And I think that goes a long way. I think that investors, and when you're selling your book of business, software as a service has a tremendous amount of value in your product offering. And so if you can show that as an ISO, I think that's huge upside for you. And we're always welcome to incentivize our ISOs as well that want to start with us and basically see. So in other words, for every account that you board, we'll send you an extra $100. So we have different incentive plans, that offer our ISOs. But ultimately, it's a win-win scenario.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it. That sounds great. I know there's a lot of ISOs even that would have, 1,000 Clover, 2,000 Clover merchants where it's like they could literally enable this button basically. And, obviously there'd be some behind the scenes work, but, working on that and then adding that, $50 a month onto the bill. And, so yeah, it's a great revenue opportunity. Sounds awesome. I know a lot of people will want to learn more about it. Can you give us a little more insight on what the process is like to become a reseller and tell our audience where do they go to learn more about doing that?
Yeah, so we've trying to get really easy, right? Easy in the sense that you can just go to everywhere.com. That's everyware.com. You'll notice a little text us tab on the bottom right-hand corner. You can literally just text us in podcast, that keyword podcast, and our basically system will respond to you and start the process to onboard you as a reseller in our system. You can also just text us at 561-404-1462. And you can literally just text us at that number to go ahead and that'll help initiate the reseller program. And you can go ahead and get started. But really, just access us through everywhere.com and that text us button on your bottom tab right will have really you to get enrolled in our program. And you'll see how easy it is to get started with us. I mean, we're probably one of the easier companies. I like to think that we're one of the easiest companies to work with.
Well, I can't say I'm surprised that the method of reaching out to you is via text message. So.
I know, right? That's exactly what I was thinking.
That's awesome.
I mean, it would have been a little bit dicey if you said email us.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So,
right, or God forbid I said call us.
Right. So, Larry, great information. I'm really glad we're able to have this conversation. I think it's going to be good for our audience to just kind of understand this world a little bit and hopefully reach out and learn more about this opportunity. So thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, James. And thank you so much, Patti.
So Patti, of course, the official sponsor of our podcast, NMI.com. We just put out an ebook with them. It was actually the first edition of the Merchant Sales Insight, which is a new kind of industry publication that CC Sales Pro has been spearheading and you've been helping with. Very excited about it. So we have a new link we've added. So if you go to ccsalespro.com/NMI ebook. So it's NMI ebook. That will take you, NMI ebook, all lowercase, all one word. That will take you to the ebook download page. And again, it's called Connecting the Dots and Payments. Worked on it with NMI, and it's so interesting talking about really omni-channel, but it's a very practical instructional guide to it. So I'd really encourage people to go check that out.
Yeah, I found it very instructional. It was sort of like omni-channel is sort of one of those terms that's out there, and it's kind of fuzzy sometimes, right? Yes. And I think you put a lot of clarity into this. So please go to ccsalespro.com/NMIEBOOK.
Awesome. Hey, everybody, let's jump back into the episode.
And now, here is questions from the field with James Shepard.
So Patti, today in questions from the field, I want to, in some ways, reverse an earlier position that I took very publicly. And that was, I was not an Apple Pay fan, and when I say that, it's not like I didn't like Apple Pay at all. I use it, but I just didn't see the rationale. It was like, okay, so who cares? I'm going to pull my wallet out and get my card out, or I'm going to pull my phone out and hit the Apple Pay. Like,
that's kind of how I felt about it. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, then something changed. So in the last couple of months, I have had several experiences where I was shopping online. I alluded to this in the interview a little bit ago, but I've been shopping online. And my first purchase was a company called Municipal. It's a clothing company. And I saw a commercial about it or whatever, and I wanted to buy some t-shirts, some workout t-shirts. So I go in there. I'm a guest, I don't have an account or whatever. And I picked the t-shirts out that I wanted, and it was like $80 or something, and I went to the checkout page, and it was really unusual. It didn't make me sign in or create an account or anything. It just had a button that said, do you want to create an account, or do you just want to pay with Apple Pay? And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I tapped on it. And when I tapped on that, and I'm on a website right now, okay? I tapped on Pay with Apple Pay, and my phone, the Apple Pay dialog pops up on my phone, and I had already entered my stuff in there, and it had my shipping information, it has my address, right? And my card, and I clicked Yet Pay, and it pre-populates and pays it with the shipping and everything, right? Then it says, the next screen says, you're all set, thank you. And then it says, do you want to create, would you like to create an account with your Apple account, And I just clicked yes. And Apple already has my email. And so it was like, wow, in 2 clicks, I entered my shipping information. I entered all my card data. I validated the transaction with Face ID. I mean, it was very secure because it was, if you don't know anything about Apple Pay, if you're doing an online Apple Pay transaction, it asks you to double click on the side. And then it does your Face ID to process. So, I mean, talk about like triple authentication. And then I created an account, and then I was getting emails from Municipal to, hey, your packages are on the way, because I created the account. And it was so shocking in my mind. I was like, that was like unbelievably simple compared to what I normally have to go through the first time I buy from one of these online retailers.
So let me just clarify. So you're saying you were online using your PC or laptop?
No, my phone. My phone.
You were online using your phone.
Right.
Shopping.
Yes.
And then that so when you push that, hits that pay with Apple, then it just did an automatic dialogue with Apple.
Yeah, like right on my screen, like right overlaid on top of the website, it pulled up the Apple Pay dialogue that comes up, and then it said, and then a little arrow over to the thing that said double click here, which I'm used to that, and you double click, and then it does your Face ID, and then it just kind of goes ding, and it goes away, and and it says thank you, and it's like it has my shipping address, my cardholder information, and all of that, and I loved it, and it didn't take away. It's not like that's competing with our industry. I mean, I used my regular Capital One credit card. I mean, it's not like I used, so I was like,
but how convenient.
Oh, it was amazing. And it really is interesting because, there is so much friction in shopping online that there's a reason a lot of people shop through Amazon and Walmart, because you create an account. Anybody that's ever shopped on Amazon on your phone, you've seen the little slide, buy now, right? You just slide it across the screen and it magically appears at your door the next 2 days, right? So to me, that experience has been missing. And one of the main reasons I haven't shopped at smaller independent online retailers, I usually end up going through Amazon or something. And so I really think Apple Pay is very powerful in that way. And I think as we see technologies like the text to pay, or pay by text, I should say, as Larry corrected there, but pay by text. And as we see other things like this, pay by email, pay, whatever, if they are going to start leveraging Apple Pay like that, Apple Pay and Google Wallet and others, I'm not an Android person, so I haven't experienced it, but if it's anything like Apple Pay, I think that is going to take off like a rocket ship, because as more and more payments, as Larry just mentioned in the interview, as we get away from plastic and it gets to more of completing the transaction on your phone one way or another, I think the idea of just having your payment information and your shipping information stored on your phone securely and being able to get all of that data, into an online hosted payments page very quickly. Online hosted payment pages have really been kind of a pain in the neck, in my opinion. I mean, I get it. It's nice to have, but you still got to key everything in. You're on your phone. It's like, it's stupid. It's very frustrating. You get it's like, oh, look at this. I got a link. All I have to do is click this link to pay. Well, no, you got to click this link you got a text message. That's going to take you to a mobile payments page. And then you're like, oh my word, I got to key everything in here, which is really annoying. Whereas with this now, it's like, no, you don't. You just click pay with Apple Pay and then you're done. So anyway, early on, I was, like, what's the deal with this Apple Pay? Why would people use this? And I've used it extensively. And I still agree with my original assessment that when you're in the store and you're going to pay face to face, I've gotten used to it now, so I use it a lot, but I don't really care. It's not like it's that convenient to me, but it's more about now experiencing the online shopping experience. I think you should be thinking about, really, if you have a merchant that's card not present, think about how could they be leveraging Apple Pay to improve their customer experience? Because I have, since the example I gave Patti, I've gone back to Municipal 3 times to buy more clothes. Sure. And I got to be honest, a big part of it is that was super easy to do. Sure. And, and it was well organized and it just worked. And it was like, wow, that kind of felt like I was shopping on Amazon. That was pretty cool.
And this also goes to the stat that I mentioned in my report about digital wallets for online payments growing so much.
By like that.
Things like Apple Pay and Google Pay start popping up more and more in these stores. Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and it's like I more and more I was kind of like, why is there this growth? I mean, it's like, okay, I get it. Everybody just wants to use their phone to be cool, but that experience and then what's interesting is since then, I've shopped on several well, just the other day, my wife, Christina, she was on shopping on, what was that? Oh, there was some new clothing store she liked that was at our local shopping center. And so she wanted to buy some additional things, and she went on their website on her phone, and she was going to the checkout. And I said, hey, if it says Apple Pay, click on that. You're going to love that. And sure enough, she clicked on it. She never used it, so she had to put some information in there for Apple Pay, but it was like, it's like, oh, wow. I mean, it's so shocking. It's so simple compared to what I had experienced in the past that I really think it's poised for growth if they continue that.
Yeah, obviously. They've really thought this out. Good stuff, James. Thanks.
Thanks, Patti.
This is the Insider's Report with Patti Murphy, brought to you by The Green Sheet.
Well, everybody, today I want to share a bunch of data with you. Let's just call it, I think I said this once before. I used to call these isometrics, metrics for ISOs. And Pfizer just did published some data based on a consumer survey as well as some internal data spanning Q1 2020 to Q2 2021. So here are a couple of things that I thought stood out. Buy online, pick up in store. In the latest month, they asked consumers how have you used BOPIS, as they call it, in the last month. 60% had used it in a restaurant. No surprise there, I don't think. 48% at a general retailer, 44% at a grocer, which is interesting. I would have thought the grocer would have been ahead of the general retailer.
Well, I wonder though.
I don't know about you.
I wonder if though, Patti, in that stat, that 44%, does that include buy it and then it's delivered? You know what I mean?
This is only buy it and pick it up.
And see, I think that's why it's not as far ahead. Right? Yeah, because like I think most people like to me, the whole reason that you do that for grocery is, and I've done it both ways. I've gone and picked up the groceries at, where we'll get them. Right. But once we had delivery available, it's like, why would I not do that? Why would I drive to the store? I mean, I know there's a little bit of a cost savings, but when you're buying, usually most people, their grocery order is a pretty big order each week. It's a nominal expense to get it delivered. So I think you're going to see that 44% even decline as the service area and service improves for, grocery delivery.
That's a really good point. Yes, it is. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was omni-channel spending, which is like a mix of online and in-store business models. Here's some year-over-year growth in key verticals. Okay, so it went up 77% in restaurants. Again, not a big surprise. People go online, order what they want, either go pick it up or it gets delivered. 71% for groceries. Again, that could be delivery as well as picking up in the store. So I think that takes into account what you were talking about.
Yeah, I think so.
And 39% for retail. Contactless in-store payments. This number just blew my mind. Even though we've talked a lot about contactless has taken off and everything, contactless in-store grew 450% year over year, and now encompasses 5% of in-store payments compared to just 1% a year ago.
Wow, that's amazing. Good night.
That's really amazing.
Yeah.
Digital wallet spend online grew 394% year over year. These now account for 4% of all online payments compared to 1% pre-pandemic. Again, I mean, 394% is a lot in terms of growth, but when you only had 1%, it's only going to grow so much.
Right.
Here's another one that surprised me. Online debit spending grew 50% year over year compared to just 5% growth in online credit spending.
Really? Wow, that is interesting.
People are using their debit cards, obviously, more and more, which kind of goes to what we spoke about last week with regards to the whole debit routing.
Debit routing becomes even more important.
Becomes even more important. Another one, 76% of consumers are aware of QR codes for payments, but interestingly enough, only about a quarter have used it. And I have to admit, I'm probably one of, I've used QR codes to get the menus and everything, but I've never kind of taken that last step. And I think, people are still a little bit leery of that until it becomes more robust and more common. I think it has to be more common.
Well, and I'll tell you the other thing that's interesting about it is, Patti, I feel like generally speaking, the technology solutions that enable QR code payments hasn't been very smooth. A great example of a good one is Dunkin' Donuts. Okay. This is the most common one that we use, my wife, Christine, and I. So we have the Dunkin' Donuts app, on our phone.
Uh-huh.
And all we do is, it's interesting because it's actually the other way around. So on the app, when you open the app, right in the middle, like as soon as you open it, is your QR code right in the middle. Well, we have a card attached to our profile in the app. And we have all of our rewards and, free coffee and get your points, whatever. So when we pull up the drive-thru, we just hit the app and then they have a little QR code scanner and we just hold it up and we, scan the code. And what it does is it takes any coupons or special offers and applies them to the sale. And then it takes the remaining amount from the card we have on file. And so that's a seamless experience. Where I think you have problems is people are like in the store wanting to pay and they are supposed to scan a QR code. Well, that sounds good, except then what? Well, now they go to a hosted payments page where they have to enter all their information. They would much rather just swipe the card. They're standing there.
Right.
So I think we're going to see more solutions. Well, I think we're going to see a lot more text to pay type solutions like what we were just talking about. Right. But then I think we're also going to see a lot more of QR code integrations with Apple Pay, which I'm going to talk about in a minute with my questions in the field. And I think we're going to see a lot more of the reverse QR code where it's your QR code, you're not scanning a QR code. The business is scanning your QR code and then they know who you are.
Yeah. I think that's far more intuitive for the consumer as well, because again, I've had that same experience with you. It's like, why do I want to take this and then build this out here? Just take my card, So one more set of data points that I wanted to share today is about buy now, pay later. We've talked a lot about this in the last several months. And, when I first started looking at buy now, pay later, and maybe you had the same feeling, it's like, oh, this is for people who don't quite have the money, they have poor credit ratings or something like that.
Right.
This data shows that it's not necessarily the case. 1 in 3 high income consumers have used buy now, pay later. Wow. And 1 in 4 of what they call middle income consumers have used it.
Yeah.
And I think it's all about the sort of the simplicity and the cash management of it. Yeah. I mean, I've used it not because I can't pay for it, but it's like, oh, well, if I do this now and I don't have to pay for it for a few weeks, that gives me a chance to go home and, shuffle my money around and pay it. Right. I mean,
and for me,
convenience.
Yeah. And for me, I've used it once because of trying to make a purchase that was so large that my card, I didn't have the per transaction limit. And it's like, well, which is more of a pain here? You know what I mean? Do I want to deal with this and call the card company? And it just so happened that it was later in the evening and it was my bank card. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'll just do this. So I did so I think there's a convenience factor there for sure. Yeah, good stuff, Patti.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Merchant Sales Podcast. Whether you are an industry veteran, processing executive, or just trying to learn about the payment space, we appreciate your time. The Merchant Sales Podcast is a joint production of greensheet.com and ccsalespro.com, and we hope you will tune in next week for more information and tips on building your merchant services business.